Hi there. This is Belinda Colleen, and I like to talk about reselling and my experiences, and I welcome you here. Today, I thought a good topic because let's face it, part of what we do is negotiate. So I want to talk about some different negotiating strategies for resellers. I want to talk about some things that have worked for me and some things that haven't. So hopefully this will help you and you'll leave some comments and we can help each other. I think that's what YouTube is all about. So there are many times that we enter into negotiations as a reseller. You know, the most obvious one, of course, is when we are negotiating with a customer on a platform. Like I sell primarily on eBay, and I also sell on Etsy and Depop. But I'd say 95% right now is on eBay, and hopefully that'll shift because I just got onto the other two platforms. But, we've all had different experiences, negotiating on eBay. And one of the ones that comes to mind is, one that we've all had where you're just so frustrated. You've got a nice item that you're excited about, that you feel you've given a fair price for, and you've got someone chipping away. They give you a really low offer. Maybe it's something you've got listed for $49 and they give you an offer of $18. Well, let's face it, that's ridiculous, right? I mean, so you've got to decide what your bottom is for anything. And the nice thing about online negotiating on a platform is you've got time, because there have been many times where I'll be just kind of furious almost. It's like, you have got to be kidding me. They're trying to rob me, We've all felt that way before. But so what I'll do is test the waters with them, see, how much flexibility they have. And I'll counter, occasionally, like if somebody offered me $2 on a $50 item, I might not counter, because I'll think they're just screwing around with me. But if they offer something, I'll almost always counter. And I rarely get $2, offers, but I'll counter with something, really close to what my price is and see what they do after that. What's their second offer going to be? Or are they just looking to rob somebody? And let's face it, sometimes the people you're dealing with are trying to buy it to resell it themselves. So a lot of the people that are trying to buy your items, they're just trying to see if they can take it from you for low enough so that they can turn around and do what you're trying to do. I am positive that's the case. We've all done our research where you go in, you say, who is this guy or who is this woman? And you look at their rating and you look at their profile on eBay or whatever, and it's obvious they're a seller too, and then you're like, oh, okay, now I know what's going on. They just hope I don't, that I'm desperate to get rid of it, and then I'll give it away to them so they can turn around and do what I'm trying to do already, which is resell it for a fair price. And get as much profit as I can out of it. Now, that's the easiest negotiation we have to do. And even though it can get frustrating, and sometimes we take it personally, you just can't. People are going to do what they can do, and they're going to see how low you'll go. I don't know about you, but I've had so many cases where someone started off with a really insanely low offer, and because I countered, and then usually I'll counter once, and then if they don't come up very much, then the next time I'll say, this is, I'll counter maybe one more time at the same price or maybe $1 less or something, and then I'll put the message, this is as low as I'm willing to go on this item, and then that's it. And then from that point forward, if they continue to try to play with me and bring me down, I just ignore it because I've made my two good efforts. I feel like 2 attempts is enough, but I do really think that you're probably leaving some money on the table that you could take with you and put in your bank account if you don't counter offer some of these people, because I've had some of them come around, Some of them weren't resellers. They really, really wanted it, but they heard, they've heard all the stories. Oh, on eBay, you can get stuff for nothing, man. Just, some people are just cleaning up their closet. Just offer them anything. They'll take it. And that's true. We've all had that experience where someone was literally just trying to give it away. And they're not business people. They're just trying to clean up their closet, or get rid of their grandma's stuff or whatever. But this kind of, fuel is what feeds some of these horribly lowball offers that make us all angry, but we just can't get angry about it. Just take care of it, counter offer, give a nice message, and then let it go. And surprisingly, I've had some of these people that I pretty much wrote off come back and then end up buying from me. So it's a funny game, but don't waste too much of your time on those people because there's a lot of them out there. And I've noticed that once I get serious and I let them know I'm serious and I say, this is as low as I'll take, this is my final offer, most of them just go away. But a few of them come back and buy. But then I'm done with it. Once I'm done with it, it's like, okay, I did my best on that. I think all we can do as resellers is do our best, give them our best offer, tell them that so they don't just keep sending you dollar offers. Although, so what if they do? Just ignore them. That's what I do. So, okay, that's the easiest, I think. The second time you're going to end up negotiating is at garage sales. And that's a lot different kind of negotiation than, let's face it, when you're just sending messages back and forth online. It's a lot less personal feeling, and you're not staring them in the eye, and you're not, standing in front of their house. Completely different feeling, that's for sure. So when I'm at a garage sale, I have to admit, it feels a lot more personal to me. And whereas I could be really kind of strictly business online, I try to be a lot softer when I'm at someone's home because I just think it's a respectful thing. Doesn't mean I want to pay more for anything. I already know what I'm willing to pay, but I have learned a few things at garage sales that have really helped me a lot. And one of them is to try to just bundle things together, because I learned the hard way. If I take one item that I'm excited about and I'm like, what do you want for this? And sometimes they don't have prices, they're all different, right? And when they don't have any price, it seems harder to me for some reason. I like to see the price and then I know where I'm starting at least. When there's no price, I just hate that, but it happens. It happens a lot. And I'll say, but I don't want to say the number. I don't want to be the first one to say the number. I mean, I was in sales for a long time. It's like, don't say the number. Let them say the number. And then you have all the information you need to work with that. But if you say the number first, you may say a number that either is overpaying. Maybe you find something that you would be, let's say you find a beautiful leather coat and it's heading into the winter and you're like, oh, wow, this is great. And you think, I paid $30 for this because I could probably get $150 for it. So you go up there and you say, how much do you want for this coat? You don't never act like you're crazy about it. Don't go on and on, but you should, it's nice to compliment. Say, this is a nice leather coat. I'm just curious, how much are you asking for it? And if you have any personal story to relate that makes you more human, that's even better. It's like, this reminds me of a coat I had when I was in college, and I always loved that coat. And of course, that coat's long gone, but this looks just like it. And I was just wondering, how much would you take for this? And then let them give you a number, because they may give you a number way lower than what you're willing to pay for it. So let them tell you, don't go out in there saying, I'll give you $50 for this. No. Because surprisingly, you never know what someone wants. Sometimes they really are just cleaning out their closets and they don't care. They're just trying to get rid of stuff. You just never know. And then, of course, you also run into a lot of garage sales where they're asking way too much. It's like, well, I could buy that retail. Why would I buy a used one? I could go buy that retail for the price you're asking for it. You never say that, but you think it. And I just believe in, you want to be polite. And I think, coming in, saying good morning, how are you doing? Just being a nice human being makes them want to do deals with you. I guess because I was in sales for a long time and my bills were paid by being a likable person that people wanted to do business with. It seems really natural to me that you go in there not as a jerk, trying to screw them out of every penny, but as a person that's just looking to have fun, enjoy their day out, garage selling, that type of thing. And believe me, you're sizing each other up. That's just the way it is in negotiation. They're sizing you up and you're sizing them up. You're looking at their house, you're looking at their stuff. If it looks like they truly are cleaning out their house, that's the best case scenario because they're just trying to get rid of stuff. If they look like they may be getting rid of an antique booth or something, that may not be the best scenario, like they've got 3 or 4 of this item and 6 or 7 of that item. They may be wholesalers, they may be in business too, and that's okay because they may be getting out of business. And that's the case a lot of times. If they have gotten to the point where they're putting stuff on the line to sell it, they're probably liquidating or trying to make up for their mistakes, bad buys that never did sell, whatever. And you can certainly look at that, but you need to keep that in mind. Who am I dealing with here? What is their purpose? And that's the key. You got to remember what your purpose is, but the smartest resellers know what the other person's purpose is. And and you can't figure that out as easily online, but when you're standing in someone's driveway or garage, a lot of times it's pretty obvious, and just keep that in mind, and compliment them. I mean, don't gush. You don't want them to think, oh, wow, I've got a hot one here. I can really make a lot of money on them. Just be polite and respectful, and if there's something they have that's really nice, you can say something about it. Or if they have a beautiful lawn, you can say, gosh, your lawn is great. I have so much trouble with my grass. How do you get it to grow so green underneath that tree? The trees keep the grass from growing, but yours is beautiful. That kind of thing goes a long way, So just be a nice person and you'll do better. And when in doubt, just shut up and don't say anything. Like if you're negotiating and let's say you find something you're real excited about and you think, wow, I could probably get $300 or $400 for that. You've got it right out there on the lawn. You have no idea what they want for it. That's where it gets tricky. And that's the kind of thing where you'll really negotiate. But for most things, you just pull it all together and say, how much do you want for all of this? And believe me, and some people even go so far, is to, take their wallet out of in other words, I'm serious. I've got my wallet out of my purse. I'm ready to do business. How much do you want for all this? And you'd be surprised. A lot of people want to be fair too. Say, well, what do you think's fair for all of this? And if you've been a nice person, respectful, just neighborly in a lot of ways, you'd be surprised. A lot of times they'll practically give it to you, because if their goal is to clean out their house, this isn't an income opportunity for them. This is just cleaning out their house, and it makes them feel better to make a little bit of money on it, which is funny. I have been so amazed at how many $1 million homes I've been to that have garage sales. And I always think, you'd think that they'd have a better way to spend their time, but they're out here charging $5 and $10 and $15 and sometimes $20 for things on their lawn. And it always is amazing to me, but it happens all the time. I don't know if people and sometimes the kids like it. They do it for their kids, and the kids are selling lemonade. It's real sweet and cute, Norman Rockwell, in a weird kind of way. And I think it's fun. I think people do it for fun, and it's kind of a memory thing, and then they don't have to deal with it. They can just get rid of it, and it's done. But that's the second time. Now, a third time that you'll have to negotiate in this business is with a potential business partner. And that's where it gets really interesting. And you really need to be the most careful here, because these aren't people you're, having a one-off negotiation with. For instance, there is this thrift store where I know this woman that owns it, and she buys from storage units. And we've gotten friendly. Sometimes I'll go by her place and I'll pick up a coffee for her. We're sort of, acquaintances. We know each other. We've talked enough. We've talked a little bit. It's a little bit social. She works very hard. She's much older than I am. I don't, but she loves to work. Anyway, I thought, now I see an opportunity here for us to sync up. So, I won't negotiate with her hard, because I want a long-term relationship with her, and I want to put my cards on the table. So I'm not going to be tough. I might just say, oh, that's too rich for my blood. If she gives me a price that I don't like, I'm never going to insult her. I'm going to say, oh, I see it. I'm sure it's worth that. But I can't pay that for it, because what I'm doing, I'm reselling it. So she knows what I do. But I'll have her hold things aside for me. And I've given her my number and said, call me if you get this or that or this or that. And she said, okay, and she's kind of like anti-technology. She's real old school. So she doesn't put anything online, which is shocking to me in this day and age. She just has this big thrift store, and it is huge. And she has a lot of nice stuff in there. And she's got it priced kind of high. So it's priced too high for me for the most part, but occasionally I'll still pick up some deals there. And I told her some things I'm interested in and what I'm willing to pay. So if you've got situations like that where you want to cultivate a relationship, you don't want to beat them down on their prices. You can always offer, like let's say she wants, I know there was this really nice piece that she had. She wanted $150 for it. And I thought, well, on eBay, I might be able to sell it for $200. So that wasn't enough margin for me. Plus, I wasn't sure I could get it. It was the kind of piece that if somebody buys, it just wants something fancy. It's not something you need. It's just truly home decor in a nice home. And it was Urte. I remember that because I like Urte stuff. And she said, I said, oh, that is beautiful. I said, I just, I can't justify spending that much, but I said, I know you'll get that for it because it's really a beautiful piece. So I left, basically, I made sure she didn't have any hard feelings towards me based on that little negotiation we had. So that's a third thing. When you're dealing with a potential business partner or someone that you want a long-term relationship with, you got to be a little more careful how you negotiate. It's, and you got to think about it too. The thousands of dollars we could make together over the next 10 years is worth so much more than making an extra $100 or $150 on this one transaction. So you have to keep it in perspective. Now, the fourth time you'll realize you're going to get into a negotiation, and this is the hardest one of all. I kind of did it in order of how hard they are. This is negotiating with family, friends, or referrals. Because there's a lot of emotion in that game, and there's a lot of feelings, and relationships are so important to most of us. I've had referrals and family members come to me wanting me to take some stuff off their hands. And of course, you've got things like my parents are getting older, and they just don't want a whole bunch of clutter. And my mother especially, and my father too, have given me a lot of things to just giving them to me. And of course they know I love them and I appreciate it and I thank them profusely, but they just give it to me. It's not a negotiation. It's just sweet and wonderful. And we all have people in our family that just want to give us stuff. And that's great. And, and of course, I always say, are you sure? Are you sure? This is so nice, But sometimes they just want to declutter, and sometimes they just want to help you because they love you. So you've got those people. But then you've got people in your family that you're not that close to. You barely know them, maybe. They're kind of extended family. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't like them. I mean, let's face it, you don't like everybody in your family. But let's say you've got people and then they call you all of a sudden. They're like, okay, we're moving. We've got to move quickly. She just got a new job. We've got to take off. Why don't you come out here and, take a look around? I bet you can find some great things to sell for your business. Well, in this particular case, because I barely know them, they never reach out to me. I see them at family things, but we're not friends. And in fact, in a lot of ways, I don't think we really, we're not each other's cup of tea. We're real different types of people in a lot of ways. And I just remember thinking, oh no, of course I've got to be diplomatic. And so I say, well, when do you need this stuff gone by? And this was a 2-hour drive. And they said, well, you could, just rent a truck. And I thought, oh my goodness, they want me to take a 2-hour drive, rent a truck, which means they basically want me to help them move. And I'm thinking, hey, I don't sell furniture. I sell small things. And then I thought about the way they dressed, and I thought, they're not going to have any clothes that I'm going to want. They're probably going to be taking their clothes with them. In fact, they're going to take everything they think is nice with them, and they just want to get rid of the extra junk that they've decided they don't want. I know how mean that sounds, but it was my assessment. So I thought, okay, Belinda, you've got to find a nice way to get out of this without hurting their feelings, and so that the family's still intact and nobody can say, well, Belinda didn't even want to look at our stuff. So what I did, I told a little white lie to keep everybody's ego intact and make everybody feel good. I said, I bet you have some beautiful stuff. And I said, I just hate it. I said, it's so quick. I said, I've already got, I said, I don't think I can make it in the next few days. And I said, I'd have to get someone to help me, because I'm not 20 years old anymore, and I don't want to, and I don't do heavy lifting anymore, and I don't really sell furniture. I said, I'm selling things on eBay mainly, and that's just little things. And I said, it's mostly clothes. And I said, I just don't think it makes sense for me to spend, 2 hours to get there, 2 hours to get home, and for a few things. And I said, the big things that you have that are, I'm sure, are really wonderful, I just can't physically deal with it. And I said, but I so appreciate you, you reaching out to me. And I wish you the best in your move. And then I asked her about where are y'all moving? Tell me about the new house, blah, blah, blah. So I was super friendly, but I didn't want anything to do with that. And so that negotiation, I had to think about very carefully before I got into it. And it wasn't really a negotiation. They thought it was, but with me, it was a nice way to get out of it. Okay. The fourth, or one, another situation you'll get into is a friend will refer a friend. And, in this situation, my friend referred her friend, who was like a debutante, and evidently she had a lot of really nice things, but she lived quite a ways away from me. It would have been probably an hour and a half to 2 hour drive to an area that I always get lost in. I don't know why. It's my own version of the Bermuda Triangle, is this particular city in Georgia. So I immediately thought, oh no, but I thought, well, she's a debutante. There's probably a lot of money involved. And I thought, this is someone I've never met, even though she's a referral from a friend who is a true friend. So we got on the phone together and we talked a little bit. And I told her the terms that I wanted, keeping in mind that I didn't know this woman, but I needed to be nice and friendly, which I always want to be, but I really wanted to be careful with her because she was a friend of a friend. So we couldn't come to terms, or I think she kind of blew me off in a nice way, and we were both nice about it. Because I said, well, I'll have to be open for returns. So I offered her a 60-40 split, which means I take 60%, she takes 40, because I said, I've got to deal with returns, I've got to pay taxes, I've got to do this, that, blah, blah, blah. I don't think she liked that, but that's okay. Or it could have been something else maybe. And I explained to her, why I came up with that figure. And basically she said, she called me back like the next day or something and said, I think I'm just going to donate it. And I said, that's a great idea. I said, that is a wonderful thing to do. And so that was that, but that was, make sure you're getting what you want from it. I thought for 60-40, I'm willing to drive that far and do the heavy lifting on this situation. But, and she was basically getting rid of a lot of her parent stuff. The age that I am and a lot of my friends, we've got parents that are moving into different situations or, downsizing, moving to smaller homes, whatever. And they're getting rid of a lot of things. A lot of them are. And some people just, periodically people just get rid, they purge, they get rid of stuff because let's face it, we all buy more than we get rid of. And at some point you've got to get rid of some stuff. Anyway, those are the situations you're going to get into. And you always have to remember, is this a one-time deal? Like this person that I'm selling to online, it's a one-time deal. I still don't want to make them mad or anything like that, but I'm not going to put up with a lot of nonsense. I'm going to just be frank. I don't want to lose any opportunities, so I'm going to counteroffer. So each situation is different. You have to remember, what's my ultimate purpose? Is this a one-time thing, or is this does this have the potential to be ongoing? Could this hurt my relationship with my friends and family if I don't handle this well, if I'm not extremely sensitive to these people and careful? These are the types of negotiations that have happened to me, in the last year, just from being a reseller. And once you start reselling and the word gets out, you're going to run into this stuff too. People are going to be coming to you, and you may be looking for situations like that. Like I've thought about, trying to buy a bulk buy, and that I'll have to be very careful with because, that negotiation will be extremely important if I'm going to spend, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. It'll be so important that I do it right. But this just gives you some ideas. You always need to remember, what's the purpose? What's the best way to do it? What's the nice way to do it? And go from there. I hope this just opens up your mind to some different ideas and opportunities and things that you'll run into. As always, have a super day and good luck out there. Bye-bye.